Welcome, and thank you for joining us on today's third episode of Etter+Ramli Insights 2022, Optimizing the Systems for Improved Scalability. My name is May, and I'm the Marketing Manager at Etter+Ramli. We're independent client-side managed service provider to the NetSuite community. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. This webinar is recorded and will be posted on Etter+Ramli's website and official LinkedIn page. Everyone is muted and webinar administrator notifications will be disabled to ensure there will be no interruptions during the webinar. Chat will be disabled for this session to adhere to the data privacy. If you have any questions, we will have time for them at the end of the session. In any case, you're not able to ask or relay any concerns, you may send an email to success@etter+ramli.asia. This presentation deck for today's webinar will be sent to participants, and you may email to request for a copy at success@etter+ramli.asia as well. We definitely want to know your comments and inputs about this webinar as we try and improve what needs to be, or if you have any topics in mind that you want for us to have on the next webinar, we would love to know. So a link to the survey form will be sent to your email, so we hope you can fill that one out. We're hoping to get everything done within 20 minutes. So yes, we hope you enjoyed this knowledge sharing session we've prepared for you today. Here to talk more about it is our presenter today. He's the managing partner and founder of Etter+Ramli, who has been around the NetSuite community for roughly 20 years. He facilitated NetSuite's global rollout, deployed into 32 countries, and ran through 100 implementations as well. He has been a client of NetSuite and has run a successful NetSuite partnership in Asia, all of which made him adept with NetSuite at both a user and vendor level. It's also a pleasure to introduce Todd Kimpton. Todd, take it away.
Thanks, May. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Look, before we get started, just let me just do a quick intro on us. So our core capabilities, we're managed success providers to the NetSuite community. And what that means is that we engage as independent client-side enablers of change. And we're really charged with helping clients make better decisions toward NetSuite at all stages of their life cycle. Sorry for reading that directly off the sheet, but it really sums up what we do. Let's get started. Let's move straight into this, optimizing the system for improved scalability. I mean, candidly, this is my wheelhouse. This is really the area that I get quite impassioned about. Okay, managed success is not a regular term, and it's made up of two common terms, managed service and customer success. So we embody those two things together, and we talk about managed success. A managed service within the IT world really talks about how frontline user support and general system admin, and customer success talks about change, improvement, and growth. So we bring those two things together in what we do. The next part is about the subscription lifecycle. Everybody at different stages of the life cycle have different requirements. So those who are buying NetSuite have a different set of requirements to those who are growing or abandoning the system. Sort of stands to reason, and yet all the same, everybody is dealt with a different set of priorities at where they are. We're a modest team, certified NetSuite people with obviously very good processes in how we do things, plenty of experience. As we've found problems around the world, we've developed proprietary tools to help us do that, to help manage things better. And we'll talk about them a little bit later. We service our client base, or our user base really, is spread across 32 countries. Around about 600, it might be a little bit more now. Dealing with roughly 58 subsidiaries, of course, growing all the time. So we deal with clients. We run their global bench for them. Right, let's get into the wheelhouse here. Lessons learned in growing NetSuite. Okay. A lot of this I've learned the hard way. Because we run a global success plan, or many actually, for our clients. So the first part is to organize around process groups. Let's go and have a look at that. Okay. Regardless of size, the application of NetSuite is organized by process. And therefore, the success of the application is more or less tied to the different process components. So in order to understand how you want to do it, you have to break those process components or those processes down into components to determine how you're going to work with them. One client has got one process, another has got half a dozen, and another has got more than a dozen. Complexity will bring different elements to the table. Each process has got to have a functional leader. It has to have somebody who is being representative of that process and owning or at least being the custodian of that process is good administration. The third key action here is really determining how to measure success. In some things, measuring success is very easy, and in other things, it's quite difficult. So it's really important for you to define how to measure success in a particular process area. Maybe it's by improving the efficiency of that process. Maybe it's by some metric. Maybe it's by improving the load speeds or the interaction or the quality. It all depends. But it's important to know what your measure is. Otherwise, you don't know when you're there. Getting the business involved is really key. So by organizing around process, that process needs really two people. It needs the functional, which I've already mentioned, but it also needs a process owner who can advocate for the business. Otherwise, what happens is we get stuck in an IT loop where we're trying to solve all the problems using technology when maybe that's not the case. So the process owner is someone who brings the business experience, but not necessarily the functional knowledge of the system. Everybody should be accountable for the improvement of that process, and they should be rewarded accordingly. Not just for the outcomes, but for the ideas as well. Success in running processes better is really a team effort, and that team needs to feel motivated and empowered to do the best that they can. Okay, this one, I've sat in many customer engagements, and they've turned up with a laundry list of these are all of my problems. And once we get through those, that laundry list of problems, we then get down to the objective setting. And that objective setting really, I like to put some parameters on it. Okay, so we talk about 90-day sprints, whereby we're using the next 90 days to really focus on creating a particular outcome. The next part is about why 90 days? 90 days is it's almost a quarter. It's a good amount of time to get stuff done, but maybe not long enough for it to become, wasted time as well. It's from a sprint perspective, to use the agile analogy, it's way too long, but for our purposes, there's always people involved, and it's never as easy as it seems. So 90 days is a good bite. I also think that each sprint shouldn't have more than 2 core objectives. That's something which I'm pretty impassioned about. We've tried more, and what we found is the business just can't work through those objectives in a good enough time. Naturally, each process has the 2 objectives. So more processes, more objectives, but that comes with complexity as well. What's really important, though, is that there is some objectivity around what those improvements are, and there's a catalogue of ideas on how things can be improved, and I think that really brings some planning to the table, which is sort of critical. Okay, time management. I mean, the amount that gets talked about on this is really quite a lot. So if you're really trying to, grow properly, you have to spend some time on today, because we need to. Users have got problems. We've got to be able to get processes done, process the data, invoices out, whatever. I think that anyone who's focused on NetSuite should be spending about 45% of their time on tomorrow as well. Now that could be too high, could be too. I don't think it's too low. It could be too high, but ultimately, the more time you spend on tomorrow, the more gain you create as well. Don't get too stopped in the amounts. Get stopped by the idea that in your day, if you don't allocate time for tomorrow, then tomorrow will just become today. So you've got to be able to have some time dedicated for that. But be cautious about doing things that are too far off into the future, which are really in the next week problems. That needs some consideration. It needs some learning. It needs some planning. But don't get too caught up in the long run future. Be really focused on today and how you can use tomorrow effectively with in achieving the objective at hand. Okay. Oh, mate, so true. The number of clients that we've dealt with in this area of grow, improve, post implementation, they invariably turn up and say, "Oh, I've got this problem. I need to automate this or do that." And invariably, we find that the automation is a symptom of much bigger problems that are really about incremental change or improvement. A client recently, we need to script something on the sales order, and we got engaged and looked at it, and it turns out there's a number of convoluted things that are occurring on the sales order that if they just adopted the standard process, they'd be much better off. And this then comes into the next thing, which is really about where the improvement lies. So what we found, Pareto's rule of 80-20 applies in this area too, that 80% of the problems are only in the 20% that's visible. Sorry, the 80-20 rule applies. So almost all of it is about incremental improvement, tweaking, extending, and functionally pushing things a little bit further, not dealing with large big bang projects whereby you're really trying to change and improve or do something significant as a project. We find that very infrequently, and so if you think everything is okay with your environment, it's probably resident in the 80% of incremental improvements, which is where people are just inefficient. They don't know enough. They don't move fast enough. There's cumbersome processes, that sort of stuff. So what all this comes down to is people, process, technology. Every improvement has got three components to it, and you have to understand which one of those are relevant. People, obviously, he's talked about training skills, building understanding, building empathy, etc. Processes is about moving data. That could be the physical movement of data or the digital movement of data, but it's how things change. And then the last part is the technology. So which is the technology really doing the job, or are we just reorganizing people, retraining people, and reorganizing the process to get the job done? Again, just because we're using a software tool as the basis for the change doesn't mean that the change is always about the software. It's a key part. Okay, May, we've sort of got through that pretty quickly. Do we have any time for questions?
Great. Once again, Todd, thank you for such an insightful session. We have a handful of valuable key takeaways from the session, thanks to you. Again, Etter+Ramli is here to guide you so that we can help you improve your system utilization and expand or grow the business usage of your system. All right, we will go ahead and take some time for questions now. Just a reminder, please be sure to email us your questions or any concerns you might have at success@etterramli.asia. Okay, it looks like we have a few questions here. Sean Penn from Arkansas How can you help us with legacy issues? Say, for example, an employee leaves the system after go live and it remains unchanged for several years. Can you help us fix it? Wow, such an intense question, but yes. To do the honors?
Sean, the reality is that we do that every day. The number of clients who go live, who change very little, people who had a lot of knowledge leave, and then 3 or 4 or 5 years later, they're looking around saying, why do we do it this way? And they point to people who are no longer sitting at the table. That happens all the time. And that's really what we do is really get involved with those clients. We clean up their accounts, and then we set them on a better path for long-term success with improved processes and improved governance in how they manage their things. That's really what managed success is all about. So yeah, absolutely, we do that every day, mate.
Great. All right. Another one from Ramesh Priyanka from India. Right. With your services, how can you bridge or possibly close the value gap in our systems or processes? Very insightful question.
Yeah. Well, look, how do we do it? Okay. Well, it's pretty simple. Like we apply a particular methodology to how we do things. Now that methodology is sort of resident in the education, because we find that people, while they know how to use the system per se, they don't really understand the basis for it. So we focus quite closely on educating management and stakeholders to make better decisions. That's the first thing. Once we do the education part, we run a pretty good change control process around how we govern what that change is, and help to influence good decision making. Now that's pretty normal. You'd expect that from anybody who's doing things like this. I think the main thing that we bring to the table is knowledge about running the program that releases the value in the most effective way. And we do that because that's really what managed success is all about. It's about getting that value, defining the value, and then managing it day in, day out to release it as an effective managed service. It's a piece of expertise which we've developed over the years, and quite frankly, our clients have really continue to extend day in and day out their utilization of the system to great accolades.
Perfect. All right. Another one from Eldon Henson from the UK. Okay, so I've seen your website. Okay, I've seen your website and find interesting plans there. Do training and support come with their package plans?
Yeah, the training and support really are the part of the managed service element, and so absolutely. Like I said, we're really big on education, so we really like to help make sure users know what they're doing, and not just what they're doing, but really why they're doing it as well. What we've found over the years is that many of the best ideas came from the users, and by educating the users in why, we found that we released more good ideas because they were able to empathize with the limitations and provide good solutions that are sort of mutually rewarding. So I hope that helps.
Fantastic. All right. We have a room for one more question. Terry Lin. It's from Terry Lin of Vietnam. He asks, we think that our NetSuite subscription is a waste of money. Oh, wow. Okay. How can your team improve our system utilization and expand our business usage?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, look, so when I worked with NetSuite years ago, I was part of their client management team, and I looked after Asia, and we only ever got the clients that had 2 feet in the grave. So your position is not an uncommon position, at least to my ears. The changing systems is a radical task. You made a decision to be on NetSuite for a reason, and if the business hasn't really changed, then it's probably a case of just a growing value gap that can probably be closed more easily than abandoning the system. So, to answer your question, can we help you? That's what we do, and we've brought more clients back from 2 feet in the grave than probably most service providers out there, and we do it by applying our methodology of dealing with the issues, understanding the problems, but most importantly, educating the users, bringing those users back into a semblance of good process, and that's relevant to the business as well. And by applying that, we've been able to help lots of clients get the most out of their system, and prevent really quite a damaging task of abandoning the system. Hope that helps.
Right, Terry, you heard that. So we can definitely help you with it. You can just, can have a meeting after this, probably. All right. Yeah, so great. Once again, thank you, Todd. Thank you for giving us bits and pieces of your extensive experience with NetSuite. Well, that's the time we have for now. Sadly, again, if you have any other questions, please contact us at success@Etter+Ramli.Asia. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey link about today's webinar, and we would appreciate it if you would provide your feedback and complete the form. You may download the complete recording of today's webinar at www.Etter+Ramli.Asia. On behalf of Etter+Ramli and Todd, thank you for joining us today, and we will see you on our next one. Have an awesome week ahead of you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.